Hi, everyone. Welcome to the episode 5 of the Beach Court podcast. The crew is back from Pittsburgh. Well, some of us actually went to Pittsburgh and some of us didn't. But yeah, congratulations to Andrew Estrada. Lost Zone Kyogre took it down. I think that's Kyogre's first victory, guys. What do you think about that deck?
It is a very tough brain exercise to play, especially at the highest level for what, like 18 rounds that he played it. But
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
literally always just a strong deck.
always. And it's working even though, we've got bench barriers on Pokemon. But Charizard didn't see the meta, didn't really hit hard.
No,
Yeah, Kyogre is just one of those decks that gets going so quick, and even without Kyogre, it can threaten so much by just being built around the core of Turbo Lost Box. So
yeah, you can
Yeah.
still just win games without Kyogre because you're playing Lost Box. It's like,
Yeah.
man,
Maridon really took the world by storm.
mhm.
And speaking of storms, we didn't make it to Pittsburgh. Me and you, Parker. Why was that?
It did not. So basically, long story short, there's a plane that was, I guess, supposed to come in that was a little bit late for our 141 flight out of Orlando. And from there, the flight got delayed again, and inevitably canceled, which had the entire airport scrambling, trying to, get there because people were wearing, Steelers jerseys looking to go to the game. And then you got like us Pokemon nerds with our backpacks and, all that. But people found a variety of creative ways to get to Pittsburgh, one including driving 15 hours and some driving to like Miami to fly out of there.
yeah, overall, just like an awful unfortunate events that almost all the afternoon flights going to Pittsburgh were canceled. There are Pokemon players affected all over. So many people that I know, people from Orlando, people from Jacksonville couldn't make it. There were a bunch of funky plans trying to get there. Again, the wildest one was fly to Cleveland, get in at 2 a.m. and then drive to Pittsburgh from there. The guys that drove from all the way from Florida got in at like 6 a.m. It was just not it. So unfortunately, a lot of our Jax crew that was planning to go and compete did not make it. I did go up just to kind of visit. I was able to get the flight rescheduled to the next day, and I just said, "Hey, I had the plans anyway, so let me head up for that." So a little solo trip. But overall, it was exciting to be there, but definitely missed that competing. But excited for Peoria and that next chance to compete. Really, just a few weeks away.
Yeah, so Pittsburgh was going to be a lot of fun. But sadly we couldn't make it there. But we got a banger of an episode for everyone today. We got 2 really great interviews. One with the top 8. Adam Reinhardt took Maridon, took the world by storm, and he made it top 8. We also got Nick Moffit on this episode. Nick Moffit last year was top 16 North American player, also known as the Lost Zone Master. So looking forward to hearing from these 2. So first up, we got Adam. We're joined here by Adam Reinhardt. Adam, thanks for joining. Congratulations on top 8. How you feeling?
Feeling really good, feeling pretty tired, but honestly, I'm still just buzzing from this weekend. It was awesome.
Did you fly home last night or this morning?
Yeah, so my flight was supposed to be for like 5 o'clock Sunday afternoon, and I found out in like my round 11 that it got canceled, and it worked out a little bit, I guess, because I would have missed it anyways. But
You would have missed it
we had to
anyways.
scramble last night to figure out all the details. Had some friends drive me out to the airport. Me and my brother just kind of had to sprint between terminals or between gates to catch our connection flight. And yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah,
But
we know that problem very well. So
yeah,
I mean, at least like you got there, like your flight back home was canceled, whatever. Like who wants to go to work the next day after top 8ing and regional? I don't think anyone does, right? So
no,
whatever. If you
not
don't
even
make
a
it
little bit.
back, then who cares?
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about your accomplishments last season. Tell us about your player, like kind of like your backstory, how you became a competitive player, how long you've been playing, and what decks you're kind of like really into lately. I mean, obviously you did well with Murad on this weekend, but have you been on that
Yeah.
for a while?
That's about the only one I've played this season and last season. So, yeah. So Adam Reinhardt, I've been playing Pokemon since about 2015, competitively trying since about 2017-18 season. I've played a handful of different decks over the years, but the past 2 years or so, I've been playing mainly electric decks. I played Flaffy Box with the Zekrom and the Vikavolt and the Metachan stuff before Scarlet Violet came out. So I was playing that for a couple of regionals and got very close to a couple day 2s, but got top 128 at some bubbled day 2. But I also picked up Miraidon as soon as it came out, and I've been basically religiously playing exclusively that for the
Yep.
past, 5 months or something like that.
Yeah,
Uh,
about that.
and so I got basically my whole invite last year with Miraidon. I played it at Worlds, of course. I would have felt disrespectful not to be honest.
Right.
And then Worlds was okay. I didn't do as well as I would have liked, but it was still a great time. And so yeah, just riding the Miraidon hype train. Uh, Came out in full force this weekend.
It sure did,
Yeah,
right?
like third most popular deck in day one. That was crazy. I was not expecting that at all. I'm not sure anyone was. I'm just happy people are jumping on it now, seeing that it's actually a good deck. And yeah, I love the deck so much.
So I think we kind of know why it's got so popular, right? I mean, you look at AUIC, it wasn't not popular at its first tournament in London last year.
Mm.
I think it was on the board of the top 6 decks. Didn't
Yeah,
see a
I
lot of
mean,
success in London, right?
yeah,
But
I like the
Mahone
version made top 8. So.
Mahone took it to Worlds and played 4 path in a deck that like doesn't want to be path turn 1
It's
and
like
had
you're
literally
reliant
no
on your
outs in
entire
deck.
ability. Play 4 path. It's like,
Yeah,
well, maybe, yeah.
I mean, obviously, Pat's really good in the format right now. Stops Guardy, can be helpful against Lost Box. Stops Lugia, like stops Palkia, Chen Pao. There's so many like really good decks that Path stops.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
Mahone kind of had success at Worlds with that deck, and it kind of like everyone's like, oh, Miraidon's actually pretty good. It's not mid Rhydon anymore. And this weekend we had Japan Miraidon won. And
Yeah.
it almost won Pittsburgh. We had 2 in the top 8. How'd that make you feel to kind of like see what's going on with Miraidon and Miraidon kind of popping off and these new builds, and how were you able to innovate based off of these new builds?
Yeah, I thought it was super cool to see all the different builds for it. I think it's a lot more of a not complicated deck because it's really not, but it's a lot more. You have a lot more room in the deck to work with than most people tend to think. You've got a lot of options. You've got a lot of cool techs you can play, a lot of routes you can take. Again, different ways to play the deck: the path build, the turbo build, et cetera, et cetera. I personally prefer the turbo build, although I did include 1 path in my list this weekend, and that's something I've done in the past before also. When I first started building Miraidon, I played a couple beach court and 1 path just as a tech for like Gardevoir. And so eventually I kind of cut that out of my NAIC list and my Worlds list, but I brought it back this weekend. I thought it was going to be really good, especially kind of indirectly teching for the mirror. Because if you can go first and you can forest stone for your own path, they actually just like they can't do anything.
Yeah.
Unless they choose to include a vacuum. But at the time, not many of the lists I saw were. So yeah, that was kind of my thoughts on it. I do like the turbo build more, as I said, very much inspired by Sage and Park's list from the big Korean tournament a few months back.
Yep.
That is kind of how I based my NAIC list. I was playing something similar to that, but a couple of his card choices really pushed me more in that direction, and I've loved that build. I tried the path build at a cup and a challenge or two, and I wasn't a huge fan of it personally. I thought it was just too much of a lottery for me, but the turbo build is so consistent. It does what it's supposed to do. It can take big knockouts. It can play different game plans. You just kind of struggle against Lost Box, and that's just kind of how it is. But everything else, you've got a great shot against.
So what is it that makes that Lost Box matchup so tough? I mean, I'm looking at your list. You're playing 2 switch cards. You're playing the Zapdos to handle the Dragonite. Like what is it? You're playing what, 2 judges or just 1 judge, 2 Iono? Yeah, so you have 3 disruption cards, 3 boss, your consistent list. What is it that makes that matchup so hard?
It's just how the math works out, to be honest. Like, assuming they have their optimal turn 1 or turn 2, whether they're going first or second, like they're always going to put 110 on you, and then they're going to go into either Greninja or a big V Pokemon, and then they're going to go into Sableye after Sableye after Sableye after Sableye. And you just can't you can't take enough prizes quick enough. There were some, techs we could play a few months ago, like Magnezone was the talk of the town in Miraidon. I played that myself too. My Hartford list, day 2, had a Magnezone line in it. But then Super Rod came out, and it's just, you can't get rid of the mana fee unless you're playing like Lost Cities to get rid of the mana fee. And it's just so easy to play around. So Miraidon really doesn't have like an obvious answer. And with the new 151 Zapdos coming out, I think that will help a lot. But we can talk about 151 stuff a little later. But for
Yeah.
for this weekend, there's just not a whole lot that you can do, to be honest. You can maybe include like Radiant Serena to help out a little bit. That probably would be a good inclusion. Sajin actually played a penny in his list. I opted not to play the penny. It was a last minute decision Friday night to cut it for a Serena. And I've played Serena in the deck actually at multiple tournaments and I've loved it. But I was like, I really don't want to lose to Lost Box. I think there's going to be Lost Box. I'll play the penny. And then last minute, I was just like, nah, consistency is king. Just cut it, take the L to Lost Box. The only games you're really going to win against that is if they don't start optimally anyways. And then just paying attention through the weekend, there wasn't like a time, even against the Lost Boxes, where I was like, I wish this Serena was a penny. It never came up. You don't really like Laminion for the penny if you play it that much.
Yeah.
You want to use your Laminion for like the Ionos and the judges. I mean, you can use it for the penny, but you're still putting a 2-prizer back down into play to do that. So, yeah, so I went with the Serena. I thought it was great. I used it multiple times for the weekend. So,
yeah, it seems like the only two techs are really like the Radiant Serena to stop all that math shenanigans, or you could play Collapse. Like you don't always want to get rid of a Pokemon. You rather pin it up and put it back down, right? Like
that was one thing I really liked about the Japanese list that won this weekend. Is he played 3-path, 1 collapsed. I don't know if I'd play 3-path. I think I'd probably do 2, maybe 1 beach court, 1 collapsed, or just 2, 1 collapsed in a vacuum or something like that. But I do want to try the collapsed again. I think it makes some sense. And apart from that, I've also thought about just instead of playing beach courts, maybe you just play another switch card or so and play like 2 Lost Cities. Maybe you don't add the Magnetism back in, but you can still just like, take the Sableye out of play and then they just run out of attackers. You force them to use their 2-prize attackers, maybe.
Right. Yeah.
So that's something I still have to play with, but
I mean, we're impartial here at the Beach Court podcast. We definitely want you to keep playing Beach Court.
Hey, I made sure to include 1.
Yeah, obviously it's like one of the best cards, right? That's the podcast is named after that card. So we're very excited to see like, in the finals, we've got Jesse and Andrew both playing Beach Court. You made top 8 Beach Court. Like Beach Court was everywhere. It was a it was
a great card.
It was fun to see. Just looking over the your run a little bit. You went 12-4, and you farmed Lugias. I mean, it looks like you played like 4 Lugias on day 2.
Yeah.
And like that matchup isn't free. I mean, especially if they like respond to the Stone Journer, it's not free. But you put the pressure on early, right?
People think that matchup. Well, some people think that matchup is, like I said, free because of the typing. It's really not. It's very polar. And I talked with Rahul a little bit about this during our game. We're like, it's not like heavy Miraidon favored. Maybe if you play 100 games of it, Miraidon will win more of them. I'm not saying it's unfavored, but it's a very polar matchup. The game is usually decided in the first 2 to 3 turns, to be honest.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, if they, especially the path builds, if you judge path them and knock out a Pokemon, like that's really strong. But like the build you went with was a little bit more consistent, a little more turbo, guarantee that knockout. But once you guarantee that knockout, if they just give you the Serena or something and you can't hit the boss knockout or rope knockout on a 2-prizer and you take the 1-prizer, then the map can get really weird.
Yes, for sure. That's another reason I like the Serena as well, is I have 4 Gust Outs, 2 ropes. I have tons of ways to push up. If they only get 1 Pokemon down, usually whatever they start with, they'll just get a Lugia and they'll say pass. So like double rope means you have that more high chance of finding it, and you don't have to like tutor out with just Arven. You can just draw it, and then you can Arven for a generator, or you can Arven for something else. So I think I gave myself plenty of ways to really shore up the Lugia matchup, and the 1-path inclusion as well. If you find an Arven and you have a generator in hand turn 1, and you're going second or something, you can just grab a Nest Ball Forest Stone, and then you can basically just lock up the game in the first turn if they don't get 2 Lugias down.
Yeah, that it's so good. Like your deck, I feel like is more of a toolbox compared to like just how Mahone built it and just straight, lightning only. You've got like 4 1-ofs or 5, 6.
There's probably more than that.
6, not counting Pokemon, 6, 7, 8 1-ofs. These lists these days are playing 1 Nest Ball And yeah, I mean, I guess you've got 3 Maridon, 4 Ultra Ball, and 1
Yeah, 8
Nest Ball.
VIP passes technically.
I every time I build this
Even
list,
more
I'm
than
like,
that, really.
1 Nest Ball. Like, how do you make that work? Do you feel like there's games where you don't see Maridon enough, or is that enough?
I think if I were to go back through the entire tournament and pick how many games I missed turn 1 tandem unit, I could probably count them on one hand or
Yeah.
less. Like you just you have so many good turn 1 outs. If you're going first, obviously those supporters aren't outs, but you still have a ton. Going second, you shouldn't miss. To be honest, like
True.
if you can get a hand of like 4 energies, double boss and a random Pokemon or something, but you have so good odds to hit tandem unit turn 1 as long as you don't get path. And even going into the tournament, fearing there was going to be so much path because of Path Maridon, maybe Guardy picking up a little bit, just there was going to be a lot of path in the format is what I expected.
You put
So
a lot of
I
outs
gave
to
myself,
it,
yeah, I gave myself 5 outs potentially to bump path.
Yep.
Between the 2 Arvins, the Vacuum, the Forest Stone, and the 1 Beach Court. As
Yep.
long as one of those pieces isn't prized, you can kind of, or even if one of the pieces is prized, you can map to the other one. If both are prized, well, you probably weren't going to win that game anyways. But yeah, so I was ready for that.
Yeah, and I see you played against 2 Mews, it looks like, and I know Mahone talked about it at Worlds, like he was very sad he like didn't tech for a Mew, and you teched in the Drapion, and you teched in some path outs, so that Drapion put in some work, didn't it?
For sure. It was not something either of the new players expected, which I mean obviously helped, but they were not playing around it at all, to be fair.
Of course, yeah.
It's something I did include it in my NAIC list. I did not include it in my Worlds list. Granted, I faced 1 Mew at NAIC, and he kind of broke both games, so it didn't really matter. And then at Worlds, I didn't play any Mews, but I chose to include it again this weekend. It just won Worlds. It was a 1 card include to make the matchup from like a 50-50 or slightly favorable for Maridon, I think, to like 60-40 or way better. Like it's such a good matchup with the Drapion, especially the fusion builds because they're playing less path and less disruption. It's so good.
So talk about your run a little bit. I don't think you made it on stream at all, sadly.
I did
Even though
not.
you were
No.
like towards.
I was
top
kind of
tables
glad I
all
didn't, to
day,
be
right?
honest. I would have been so nervous. So
I mean, you gotta get on stream, man. That's like
yeah,
something
maybe
you
next
want.
time.
Yeah, now you got your experience playing against top tables, and
Yeah.
maybe next time you get that stream.
Yeah,
So talk about your run a little bit, especially the focus on your day 2. You went 8-1 day 1. Day 2, you're playing in a room full of 180 people, and the goal was top 8. That's always the goal, to try to be able to win the championship. So talk about your run a little bit and kind of what you went through on the day.
Yeah, so I'll run through day 1 real quick. I've got the list right here in front of me. So I played against a Lost Tina round 1. I have a ton of experience in that matchup. My twin brother, for those of viewers who don't know, I have a twin brother named Andrew. He has been basically playing Lost Tina as long as I've been playing Maridon. So we've been both playing the same deck for like 4 or 5 months at this point. So that is basically all I test against when I'm not playing online.
Dang.
So I have a ton of experience in the matchup. It's just boss gear Tina before they evolve, kill one prizer probably in between, Raichu 1 V-Star, and then Roper boss for the last kill. So it's pretty straightforward matchup. It's again similar to Lugia, where the matchup's kind of decided in the first 2 to 3 turns, I feel like, most of the time. But I was able to clean up a dub there. Round 2, I played against the first Turbo Lost box, and it went about how it was expected to go. Game 1, he won pretty convincingly. To be honest, I didn't really get that great of a start. I think I missed the turn 1 attack on that.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah, and then game 2, I think it was much closer, but he ended up getting 1 turn of like 7 in the Lost Zone, turn 2, bench Dragonite, Sableye, Mirage Gate, Water Lightning to Dragonite, second Mirage Gate, Water second Sableye, bench second Sableye, attach Psychic, retreat, take 2 prizes with Dragonite. I was like, I can't beat that. Like, you just lose.
You just lose.
So then I went into a Mareep and I rear kicked and I said, good game. So that was the starting 1-1 on the day. Not great, but we keep trucking. Then I played against another Lost Tina. Game 1, I was able to clutch out. It was very close. Path came down turn 2, but fortunately I was already set up by that point. And so I was able to just kind of trade blows. clutched out game one. It was very long. And then game two, I think he was able to get it. I think we went to a game three. Yeah. And so game two took another good chunk of time. And then game three, we were right at time, just about, like we set up and we had like a minute or two left.
Uh-huh.
And so he went start Manaphy, attach pass. And then I started Ryko and I went,
yeah.
I started Squawkabilly. I had
Yeah.
Ryko and I went generator to Ryko, hit one, attach, switch cart, Ryko for 40 damage times two. So
Rough.
yeah. So that was that game. Or round four was another lost box variant, a lost Charizard. I'm not
lost Charizard?
Yeah, it was the
Charizard EX?
Radiant Zard. No, just
Radiant Zard, okay.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure if it's better or worse than Turbo Lost Box, to be honest. It feels just as bad. It's probably a little bit better with the list I was playing this weekend because I was including the one path.
Yeah.
So I can go Iono path when he can't win with just Sableye. And that's what happened in one of the games. I think it was game one where I was able to do that. Either game one or game two. I think it was just a 2-game set. One of them he just bricked and I was able to clutch it out, which, you take those. And then the other game, I was able to get the Iono path, and he wasn't able to find the bump, plus the Charizard, plus the energy, plus the switch card. So got that one. Round 5 was a Palkia Chinpao, and that's one of your best matchups. I mean, it's not a super common matchup, but you should, with typing advantage plus the turbo plus you can control the bench damage. It's harder for them to get multiple Chien-Pao attacks. You can weave in the Brave Charm at certain times. Like, it's just, there's so many things that work in your favor for that matchup. You can still obviously lose it, but you're heavily favored. So I was able to clean up 2 games. I think I got turn 1 attack on 2 prizes both games. Yeah, it was
you're just winning if that happens. Yeah.
Round 6 was another Lost Tina, third one, and that's what, 5 lost decks out of 6 rounds.
Yep.
But it was another Lost Tina, so I did the same thing I've been trying to do. I think he won the first game, I won the second game. Third game, he started Comfey, flower selecting, Boston a Psychic Energy, put down a path, pass. And I think I started Zeraora. I had I think Arvin in hand, so I went Arvin for vacuum the path. Had 2 generators in my hand already, and I think I drew a Miraidon for the turn, so I went Tandem Unit bunch. Generator, hit 1, attach for turn, retreat, knock out the Comfey. So yeah, sometimes it happens against lost decks.
That's what I'm saying. That's how it goes. Yeah. I mean, every deck can do it. Sometimes you can go Mareep attach pass.
And it's not like you can rely on that in a matchup, but you take it when it happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the other thing with Miraidon. It has so many outs to not do that, basically.
You play so many games. Yeah.
You have a chance in almost every game.
Yeah, exactly.
So yeah, that put me at 6-1, I believe. So I was like, all right, cool. I just need to ID 1 and I'm guaranteed. My friends were telling me, play it out. I'm like, absolutely. I would rather. I have the skepticism that I am really bad at winning ins because I lost 4 of my 5 last year at regionals, so that was not fun. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to offer the ID, and if he takes it, he takes it. If not, I'll play it. So I hit John Eng, and he was playing Mew. I offered it to him. He did not want to take it. Fine. I did not know he was playing Mew at the time. Then he flipped over Mew, and I was like, okay, this is fine.
You got it. Yeah, you got it.
I feel very good about that matchup, especially because he was playing the fusion build. He wasn't really able to get going all that well. I was able to take a quick turn 1 knockout. I think he was able to respond, but then I pulled out the Drapion and just kind of said, can you win next turn? Because if you don't, I do. And so he scooped it up. We went to game 2. He started really bad game 2 again. Very unfortunate, but he just started like Mew, Genesect, attach double turbo, put path down, pass. Again, I had the out, so I went, I think I either Arvin for vacuum or I had it in hand already. I just got rid of the path, did my thing. I did not get a turn 1 knockout on the Mew, but I got perfectly set up, and then next turn, he wasn't able to do much. I don't think he even attacked. I think he just retreated to a Genesect and said pass, and So then the race started. I took 2 prizes, and then he finally got an attack off, I think. But then I Drapiened, and I took his only Mew out of play, and it was game over.
Yep. Yeah.
So then I'm at 7-1. I'm stoked as all get
Yeah,
out.
you're riding
I'm like,
high,
all right,
man.
I'm locked. Don't care what happens next round. Obviously, I wanted to win, but I was just emotions flowing all through me. And so then I actually hit my good buddy Ben Duberstein. So he's another Miraidon player, or former Miraidon player. We worked on the deck over Twitter for so long, just probably a couple months. And so he's played a good bit of Miraidon, and he obviously knew I was playing Miraidon. He's kind of
Of
jumped over
course,
to
yeah.
Lugia. So we had a good set. First Lugia of the day. Game 1 went about how I was expected to. I was able to just put pressure on pressure, and he wasn't able to catch up. Game 2, he was able to. I think we had a game 2. Yeah, game 2, he was able to get the Stone Joiner in, and then game 3, he had to discard so many energies off Squawkabilly Research turn 1.
Just to play the
I think he had to
game.
discard 5 to 7 energies, something ridiculous. And he got 1 Lugia in play, and I was able to next turn just go boss, kill it. So then he didn't really have much. So yeah, going into day 2, obviously super stoked, 8-1. 8-1. So I played against Chris Pagan. He was playing Arc Pika Coco. I think that matchup is very good for me with my particular list. I have vacuum. And a bunch of ropes for his Poncho Pikachus, so I don't really mind taking knockouts on that. It went pretty quick, but super nice guy.
That's an interesting deck to find in day 2.
Yeah, I was not
Yeah.
expecting that first round, especially.
He's playing Tapu Koko, that one?
Yep, Tapu Koko. He never put the
Wow.
VMAX down in play, but it doesn't really do a whole lot into my deck.
Wow.
I have so many switch cards.
Interested to see the list when it comes out. That'll be fun.
Yeah. So then I played another Lugia. Pretty cookie cutter matchup for that. He wasn't really able to ever get going, so beat that. Played another Lugia round 12. It was Andrew Hedrick. So that we were at table 1 at this point, so the nerves were
Yeah, we're flowing, I bet.
Yeah, but it was a close 3-game set. He was able to get the I think he was able to get the Stone Joiner, and I wasn't able to quite deal with it on one of the games, but in the end I was able to clutch it out. He went for a risky Laminion to leave him with only 1 Lugia in play, and I was able to find the boss on it, and the game was just over at that point.
I bet that felt real good.
Yeah, going up to like
table 1,
winning.
yeah.
It was unreal. But then I played Jesse Parker at table 1 again, and he just drew hotter than I did in the mirror. I mean, it's a pretty simple mirror, just take 2 prizes every turn, but he was able
So
to
he hasn't posted his list yet. Is he playing? He's not playing Path, right?
As far as I know, it's similar to mine. It's more similar to mine than it's to mine. Yeah.
That's what I was thinking too. Yeah, it looked like
Which
it.
we both kind of agreed that was the way to play it. Like, it just felt so much better. But so there are a couple little differences, but I'm sure when he posts his list, we can go through those.
Yeah.
Then I lost to him. So second loss, but all good. I still just need to win 1 more to make top 8. And I hit Rahul Reddy. So he was also playing Lugia. And so game 1, I think he's able to get the Stone Joiner in. So I go down a game early. I was close to getting a cool like Brave Charm the Miraidon, have no other 2 prizes in play so that he can't boss kill anything with T-Tar. And just hope he doesn't have the urn to get the energies back, or he can't boss anything to kill with Lugia. He had to go like T-Tar, get the urn for the energies.
Yeah.
And he discarded an urn off his first Tyranitar, but he found his last urn. So it was like, all right, whatever. Game 2, though, I was able to get just pressure. I think I donked a lone Lugia turn 1 with a V-Guard. So I couldn't do it with Raikou because he didn't put any other Pokemon in play. And with a V-Guard, you can't actually do it with Raikou. Oh, no, you can do it with Raikou. I did it with Zapdos. That's what it is.
Zapdos, yeah, that helps.
Yeah, Raikou full bench plus Zapdos is 260 minus 30 for V-Guard is 230. So that's how you do that. I think I hit the generate 2 off generator anyway, so Miraidon would have done it. But and then and then game 3 was very similar. He went Tyranitar, attach, pass. I think he put a Collapse Stadium in play. But I just had the bump Nest Ball Tandem unit, get a full field, generator, hit 2 onto a Miraidon, attach, retreat. Good game.
But then you played.
didn't press his Zapdos either game, so that was huge.
So then you're locked for top 8.
Yep.
And then you play the same person 2 times in a row.
Yeah.
And it's
so
probably
round
your
fif-
worst
round
matchup
15,
in the field, right? Like
I hit him round
Box is already
15.
bad.
I was just
but
hoping
like,
that since I hit him already, I wasn't going to play him again. Like, I know there's
Yeah.
not how it works going into cut, but I was hoping that like seeding wise, it would put us at
Yeah.
in a different part of the bracket. But unfortunately,
Kyogre without Manaphy, like I think it feels like almost unwinnable. You gotta like just go like single prize and try.
Yeah,
It
like-
just feels like so unwinnable though.
I knew he was playing Kyogre too, so I was trying to play around Kyogre as well. But there's not really a good way to play around Kyogre, so I was just trying to play with as few Pokemon as possible, so he couldn't like Raikou me back. But yeah, I don't know. It was just bad. First game was very convincing in his favor. Second game, I almost got. I was like 1 turn short. He won 1 turn sooner. If he would have whiffed 1 more turn, I would have had it, but he was able to find it. But it was all right. I was going into top 8 at like 12-3. I was just over the moon. I was so happy. So then top 8 standings come out. I see I'm against Estrada again, and I'm just like, oh, come on, dude.
Right. That's like the one
It's
matchup you
like-
don't want to hit. Yeah.
I think if I hit anybody else, I'm not gonna say I would have, made it any further than top 8, but I think that I would have given myself a huge chance to win the tournament if I had hit anybody
Yeah.
else. I was feeling very, very good into everything else.
Yeah. Obviously Estrada ended up winning, right? And so
Yeah, so I can't be too mad at that. Like
Yeah, I can't be
I
mad.
lost to the winner twice, and I lost to second place once. So
yeah.
it's like I'll take that.
Hey, I mean, congrats on your run. That's an awesome accomplishment for you. So
Thank
put
you.
you on the map, puts Maridon on the map. Maridon's got a lot of hype on it now and a lot of eyes. It won
It's such a
Japan.
weird feeling.
I know,
like-
2 top 8. So like, do you think the meta's gonna try and like shift and counter it more and play more fighting? Like maybe Lost Box. I mean, Lost Box still already a good matchup for them, so they're probably not gonna change much.
I don't
But
think
like,
Lost Box changes anything really. I don't think you need the Galarian Zapdos or anything like that. I think it's in a similar spot to like Chien-Pao, to be honest. I think it's like if Fusion Mew and Chien-Pao had a baby, that's what Miraidon is essentially. Because like you play Fusion Mew for the turn 1 attack potential. Miraidon can do that. You play Chien-Pao because you can hit like unlimited damage with it. Raichu can do
absolutely.
that. You kind of give up the toolbox aspect in a way from Chien-Pao because they have so many different attackers and little tech cards and canceling clone, Greninja, cross switcher, all this fun shenanigan stuff. And then like Mew, you've got just the straightforward, I'm just gonna beat stick, insane draw power, turn 1 attack, aggression.
Yep.
Radon has that. So I think it's just like a mix of the 2 decks. And I think to be honest, I think it's a better deck than both of the other 2, but again, it's into the right field. Obviously
Yeah.
they have better ways to deal with Lost Box than I do. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you hit
I think the
15
meta's going to be
lot,
I think the meta's still going to be in a great spot for it, to be honest, in Peoria. I don't see anything like major coming out. It's not like the whole field's going to be Tinglu or anything like that. Maybe
yeah, I think it
some-
was pretty
maybe
bad.
some
Yeah, for
people
sure.
Pop up with Tinglu, but I
Yeah.
wouldn't count on that. You can still beat Tinglu too. Just go generator a bunch, knock out the Tinglu.
Yeah, that's very true. So how do you see your list adapting coming? Look, if you had to pick it right now, would you just like run the Japan list at 1, put the
I
Mew
would-
in it, put the Zapdos in it? Like what changes would you make to try to, go into 151 for now?
I like the Mew. I like the Zapdos. I like the Collapse, but I would have to try it a little bit more. But the Zapdos and the Mew, I think, definitely go in the list. I like the Hawlucha include as well. I think.
So
I
what is
may
that for? What do
play-
you think that's for?
It's for the Zapdos because the Zapdos has to have damage to do the bench damage. Like you have to have damage counters already
Oh.
on the bench to do anything with it.
Okay.
Yeah. So I do like the Hawlucha. I almost want to play an Alakazam. But that would be if you're going less heavy on the path build. So like maybe if you're going like 1 path, like my list now,
Yep.
or even 2 path and like 2 other stadiums or another stadium in a vacuum, I think would be good because it can let you do some really cute plays where if you hit 220 into a VMAX or V star or something like that, you can move some damage and then gust it to the bench and do 150 to it and then hit the next thing or whatever. So you give yourself a lot of options that way. Also, if you don't have the Pogo Zapdos, you can like hit into a Dragonite or something else and then maybe later move the damage to it and kill it or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, the Alakazam seems interesting for sure. I
Mhm.
mean, depending on if you can't kill something. I'm not really sure where that goes, so I'm interested to see your list.
I was gonna say
Well,
we'll do some testing with it soon.
I was
So
about to say,
I'm
you
excited.
know, I'm always down to test Maridon.
Yeah.
I kind of feel like I had the first saucy list. I played cross switcher Maridon in Portland at a cup.
Oh man.
Did pretty well. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So hopefully to bring that back. So where can people find you? Thanks for joining. We're out of time for today, but you know, where can people find you and where are you going next?
Yeah, so people can find me on Twitter at Pikachu Prime 19. That's where all my Pokemon stuff is. So don't have a YouTube or anything yet, maybe in the future. So follow me on Twitter to stay tuned for that. But yeah, I'm going to be in Peoria in a couple weeks. I am not going to be at Toronto as of right now, and then I will try to be at San Antonio once registration for that comes out.
Yep.
And that'll be the calendar year for me. Cups and challenges here and there, obviously. So
Right. Well, I mean, today was, you know, this weekend was good for you, and you got, you know, a big boost for your, you know, for your Worlds invite. You're on the right tracks, man. So keep it up. We're proud of you. Happy to see you. Thanks for joining the Beach Court podcast. Hopefully, we can see some Beach Court in your list in Peoria. And,
yes, sir.
But thank you for joining. I
Yeah, thanks
appreciate
for
it.
having me on there. I appreciate
No
it.
problem. Have a great day, man.
You too.
Thanks again, Adam Reinhardt, for popping on the Beach Court podcast. Again, congratulations on your top 8 finish. Next up, we have our interview with Nick Moffit. However, before that, we'd want to tell you real quick about who this episode is brought to you by Nakama Anime Cafe and their Nakamacon coming up in November. So Nakamacon is going to be an anime, gaming, and Japanese culture con. Your place to buy, sell, trade, and game. There'll be vendors, cosplay contests, video game tournaments. You meet some of your favorite creators. Check out Artist Alley. And also, for the folks of the Beach Court podcast and Pokemon trading card game, you'll be able to battle the Elite Four, which will be hosted by our podcast right here. You'll be able to battle our World Championship competitors. And, well, we need a 4th member, so we'll have a mystery 4th guest. So stay tuned for that. The Nakamacon is going to be on November 4th and 5th in Orange Park, Florida. And in order to get your tickets, you can go and check the description below. There's actually running an early bird special until the end of September. So act fast to get a discount on tickets before anyone else. That's November 4th and 5th in Orange Park. And you can go to @NakamaJax on Instagram or check out the link in the bio to check out the convention. Anyways, next up, we have Nick Moffit on. Enjoy.
Everyone, I'm joined here by Nick Moffit, who just finished 10th place at the largest regional ever. How you feeling, Nick?
Feeling pretty good and happy about the finish. Unfortunately, wasn't quite good enough for top 8, but did my best and hopefully we'll make it there next time.
Yeah, it seems like 36 points is the new norm to be guaranteed now. And like 35, it used to be maybe one person bubbled out.
Right.
Now we had 6 people bubble out this time. That's kind of wild. Is that just because of the larger regionals? And
Yeah,
it's just be like that from going on.
Just has to do with the sheer number of people, means more match points in circulation, means you need more to place higher, right? But yeah, I mean, any other tournament, 11-2-2 would be basically locked for top 8, except
Right.
maybe Orlando last year, that maybe 1 or 2 bubbled. But yeah, I was hoping to go at least 7-2 on day 1. Had a weird situation come up that one of my wins got changed to a draw. We can go into that later.
Yep.
But so came in at 6-2-1 on day 1 and then went 5-0-1 day 2. My only tie was an opponent who didn't want to do a gentleman's agreement. I was trying to, set those up every match because I knew you didn't need to go 6-0 in order to make top 8. And that, that's obviously always my goal is to win this tournament. But yeah, I had one opponent who declined, which is well within their rights.
Of course.
And, it was Lost Zone Turbo versus Giratina. Had two good games that took about 40-45 minutes total, and then obviously just not enough for the 3rd game. It is what it is.
One person doesn't donk the other, it's probably not finishing, right?
Yeah, no, we both got 5 Pokemon out on the first turn, and we're like,
it's like, all right, shake hands, move on.
Yep,
Exactly.
Yep.
Okay, so you alluded to it. You played Turbo Lost Box. Why'd you choose that deck? And I think it's the deck I would have played if had I made it to there as well. I had some unfortunate flight situations. So kind of talk about why you chose that deck.
So I was planning on playing a list very similar to what I played at the World Championships with the Kyogre and the Professor's Research. Was looking at lists, in the 2 days leading up to the tournament, of all the different Lost Box variants, ran a bunch of numbers on average placements for different types of lists at the World Championships and at NAIC. Found this really interesting list I liked that placed 11th at NAIC, actually, that played the 2 copies of Raihan They also had the Lux Ray that lets you put it down if you're behind on prizes. So I didn't like the Lux Ray idea, but I did like the double Raihan, so I stole that from that list, and then ended up going with the Sky Seal Stone because there was a lot of hype around Lugia, and I knew lots of people would bring Mew still, obviously, and that matchup can be tricky.
Yeah.
If you just have Drapion and they don't put a single prizer down, because then you still are having to take 3 knockouts in order to win regardless. But with the Sky Seal Stone, you can win in 2 attacks, obviously. And with the right to find it, it kind of made sense.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
powerful.
ended up really liking the list. Sky Seal Stone didn't come up as much as I thought it would. So may have been better as just the 3rd forest or something. But really like the list overall. Really big fan of Raihan for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think Raihan's super, like, very good in Lost Zone decks because you're always like one combo piece from being like really good turn.
Exactly.
I used to play Snorlax Twin Energy with like 3 Raihans in it just to find it whenever I needed it.
Sure.
And it was so good for that Snorlax combo. So talk about like what your inclusion of just 1 Artisan and 1 Pokestop instead of like most lists are like 3 Pokestop, something along those lines. Talk about like why only 1 Pokestop.
Yeah, so the list that I was building off of just played 2 Artisan. But I am definitely a big fan of Pokestop. I do like the option of using it. And I think where a lot of people run into trouble with Pokestop is they'll just use it every turn, without really thinking about it. But you really do need to consider the concentration of items in your deck, basically, right? What percentage of cards in my deck are items? So what are the odds that I'm going to hit, 2 or 3 items off of this as opposed to just 1, in which case it's Artisan's likely better, depending if you're already set up or not. But so the ability to use it when as an option I really liked, and I think you can kind of see that mirrored in Andrew Estrada's winning list, where he played 1 copy of Artisan, 1 copy of Pokestop, and 1 copy of Beach Core, just to have the option for each of those. But yeah, without Palpad in the deck, I didn't think two Pokestop was appropriate. So I think the 1-1 split was a good compromise.
Yeah, that makes sense, because Pokestop pairs well with Palpad, so I totally understand that shift there. So other questions people are kind of interested in is the 4 Super Rod has been kind of something a little bit recent. People have been doing maybe 2 in a Clara or 3 in a Clara. You have no Clara on your list and just straight 4 rods. Talk about your inclusion of 4 rods.
Yeah, I thought 4 Super Rod was really good. It allowed me a lot of flexibility to send them to the Lost Zone early game if I'm pushing for a turn 1 knockout with Dragonite, let's say, and then still having more in the back later on. And I think, Clara gets you back Pokemon energy to the hand, which is great, but it doesn't send energies back to then use Mirage Gate on.
Right.
And so with the Kyogre list, we had 3 Super Rod and 2 Recyclers, and often you'll even use a Recycler earlier in the game just to get back energies for Mirage Gate if you're out of them in the deck, or just to increase your odds of drawing into 1 if you need to draw 1 and then Mirage Gate to power up Dragonite or Greninja, let's say. But yeah, I really definitely enjoyed the 4 Super Rod, and obviously without Clara, I think it's a requirement.
Yeah. So what changes would you make to the list if you had to run it back? In this format, obviously, there's no more format, right? This is the last tournament, right?
Right, right.
What would you
and things are mostly the same, but obviously some new cards like the Mew EX, the Zapdos in Miraidon can certainly be a pain. But
absolutely,
yeah, the only thing I would consider cutting really is the Sky Seal Stone for a 3rd forest, or I suppose you could make it a town store. The problem with that is you can't play 2 stadiums per turn, right? So, if you need to Pokestop or Artisan that turn, then you wouldn't be able to also use Town Store. But it does give you an additional stadium bump, and it kind of finds 2 vacuum targets in 1, does thin a card out of the deck. So it definitely has its merits. But yeah, it could be any of those. You could always go for a 2nd Boss's Orders. You could always go for...
is there ever consideration for like a 3rd Sableye since you're not playing Clara?
I think 2 was fine with the 4 Rod.
Yeah. Okay.
Didn't really think that was much of a problem.
Okay. Cool. Good to hear. Thank you for going over the list. Really appreciate that.
Absolutely.
So let's look through your run. Day one, it looks like you hit an absolute gauntlet of opponents. Between round 4 and 7, you played against Dre, Shemansky, and Manley. That was 3 of your opponents for those 4 rounds. It seems like a pretty rough gauntlet, and you had a really weird situation with Dre that, like you said, it was a win, but got put back to a tie. So talk about kind of that gauntlet and talk about the tie a little bit.
Yeah, so what happened against Dre was we went to game 3 in Turbo Lost Zone Mirror. I believe he got to go second in that one. I won game 1, he won opposite. He won game 1, I won game 2. So then he was going second in game 3 because he got to choose. And I set up what I thought should be a checkmate situation. The issue was because he had no Sableye in play. So I just kept spreading with Sableye. I used Raikou to boss up the Dragonite that he had either started with or had to bench to use Force Sealstone because he had a dead hand. I forget which of the 2 it was. And so I swung for 200 on that and then was going to clean up with 2 Sableyes over the next 2 turns when he had 3 prizes left. So then he went boss KO Manaphy with Cramorant. So I needed to get back that Manaphy in order to not lose to Greninja, obviously. And then I have a V in play, so I need to make sure that he doesn't have a way to boss and KO that, which on board currently he doesn't because he has Drapion, which only does 190. But if I were to take any prizes, it would open up a spot for Dragonite, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I play Super Rod to get back Manaphy, Sableye, Psychic. Maybe, yes, Sableye, yes. No. Sableye was prized. Second Sableye and Heavy Ball were both prized. That was the issue.
That's the worst.
So I needed, and the last Rod was also prized. And I had 2 between my hand and my deck. So I play 1 to get back Manaphy and some energies, I suppose. And then I need to save the 1 for when my Sableye gets knocked out, right? What happens is Manaphy is the last card after I play all of my Colress and Flower Selectings. The mistake I made was getting rid of Force Sealstone off of Colress. If I thought I'd already used my V-Star power, but I actually hadn't. So if I kept that, I could have used that to search for the Manaphy while leaving other cards in my deck, so then I didn't have to play the other Super Rod in order to not deck out, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So then, but since I have Sableye, so since Manaphy's the last card, I need to use an extra Flower Selecting to draw into it. Now I have no cards left in my deck, so I need to play Super Rod in order to put back cards to not deck out.
Right.
But Sableye, second Sableye, Heavy Ball, and Super Rod are all in the prize cards. So I need to take a prize card, otherwise he can knock out my Sableye and I have no response.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I'm still able to take 5 prizes and set it to where one of his Comfies has 50 damage on it. He's used all of his switch cards. So and Raikou is in the loss zone, so he can't knock out my Raikou with his Raikou. He would have to use Dragonite, which would then knock out his Comfey, leading to a simultaneous win, which I think is a tie. So, okay, I've salvaged the situation. You know, I messed up the checkmate, but at least it's where it's going to be a tie.
Did you attack with Raikou that turn in the active, or was it on the bench?
What do you mean?
So like, how was he? I know you're going to get to it. How he KOs your guy, but did you end up take a prize with Raikou, or how'd you take a prize that turn?
No, so I took 5 prizes with Sableye.
Oh, okay.
5 damage counters on Comfey.
Got it. Okay.
I had taken no prizes until this point because I was board locking him with Sableye.
Understood.
Right. So I was going to take a 6 prize turn if I didn't have to play the last Rod to not deck out.
Right. Okay.
The second to last Rod, with the last one being prized, that is.
Right.
Therefore, you know, he goes Dragonite boss KO on Raikou.
Yep.
We both win in game 3.
We both win. Yep.
And it was turn 1, I believe. So I think, okay, it's a tie because it was in turns, right?
Mm-hmm.
he accidentally signs that he won. And I was like, no, it's a tie. I'm almost certain. Let's double check with the judge. Judge says you need to play a tiebreaker game since it was a simultaneous win. I'm like, okay, that's weird. I thought that would not be the case because it was in overtime.
And in Swiss, yeah.
And in Swiss, yes. So therefore we set up, we flip, I choose second, I get the turn one Raikou Lightning Rondo, knocking out his Radiant Greninja that he put active, with a Raikou on the bench so that I can, rope and use Cramorant. And so I win the game. Match gets reported. About 10 minutes later, I get called over to the head judge table, and they asked me to recall what had happened in the match. I say, what happened? And they say, because it was in overtime, it should have been a draw.
Okay.
Which is what we had originally thought.
Right.
Before the floor judge told us otherwise, right? And
so they hadn't paired the round or anything. This is as they're reporting
they
results,
had paired the round. They had paired the round already. So they
wow.
had to change the result and repair the round, which I thought was pretty strange because I thought, if the match slip is signed and whatnot, that it would stay. So yeah, it should have been a tie at the start, but obviously it's a little bit deflating to have what you thought was a win change to a tie, obviously. Yeah. And this was when we were 4-2. So, could have been 5-2, ended up 4-2-2. We ended up both making top 8. And Dre ended up 17th. I ended up 10th. So it worked out pretty well for both of us, fortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was that.
That's a very interesting situation. So was it only because it happened in turns, or
Correct.
was it because, okay, so the judge would have been correct if it hadn't happened in turns.
Yes.
But because it happened in overtime, it's a tie, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Understood. Because there's no time to start a sudden death match, essentially.
Right. Precisely.
Yeah. Okay. That's
Which
very
is what
interesting.
I originally thought. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a very interesting situation. So you thought you had a win, you thought you were 5-2, suddenly you're 4-2-1, and now you got to win the next two. You find a way to win the next two. Like I said, you got through a little gauntlet of people there. And then day two, you start day two 6-2-1. Like you said, you're trying to make gentlemen's agreements because you think you have to win out to make top 8, which is obviously the goal. And you battle all the way back. Like you said, you were 5-0-1. But if you had lost that last round versus Cal Connor, there's a high likelihood that you would have bubbled completely out of top 32, and missed money, missed compensation, which is very big this year. In fact, Cal did miss top 32. Yeah, he got 34th.
Really unfortunate. I feel pretty bad for him.
And there's two other competitors, Jeremy Gibson and Rowan Staven now, that also had win and ends. Obviously, it wasn't really a win and end because, right, it's bubble.
Right.
But to get the points required for top 8 and then bubbled out of getting any compensation at all and getting, 16 lousy loose packs. And so what are your thoughts on that situation? How can Pokemon rectify this? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's pretty unfortunate, obviously, that Cal didn't make top 32 after our match. I do think prizing should probably go down to top 64, maybe an extra, $500 or something. But it's the same as it's always been, right? Top 64 never got anything. So it obviously feels worse that now there's a bigger pay gap, right? But it was still the case if you got to top 64 before that you wouldn't get anything, but also before you wouldn't lose a winning in to, 10-3-2 would definitely be in top 32, right?
Yeah. So now because tournaments are so big, it's creating these situations where you could have the points amount to hit top 8 if you win that match. And then when you lose, you could bubble out of any compensation at all. Not sure. Are you a golf fan at all?
Don't know much about it, no.
So like in golf, what they do is they use a tiebreaker system. So anyone with the same score, they take those placements, and the money that would be for those placements, they split it amongst those folks. So for instance, in this situation, if that was a thing, you could take I think there was 41 people that
So
had
instead
the
of them
points.
getting $1,000, they would get $800.
They would all get like 800, right?
Sure.
Yeah. I feel like maybe you can't do that with like top 8, obviously, and top 16,
Yeah.
but like maybe the folks that that would have hit that bubble, I don't know. There
That's
has
a
to
novel
be
idea.
something.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it takes away from everyone else who placed higher, but it's a novel idea for sure. Not something I've heard anyone propose.
Yeah, it just feels so bad. And like there's 60 people that played day 2 that got squat. They got nothing different.
Again, that's how it's always been.
I know. It's just it doesn't feel right.
Not always.
That's all. Yeah.
Since we've had 6-2-1,
Right.
bigger than 32 person day 2s.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
It's just really, really tough to see, Cal fight his heart out and almost have enough points to get top 8 and then
For sure. Yeah.
not even get any compensation at
No,
all.
yeah. It's unfortunate. We talked about IDing even potentially to guarantee us both top 32, but we figured, we would still be okay for top 32 even if we lost, most likely.
Yeah.
Obviously he ended up 34th, unfortunately. I think I did have better resistance, so I probably would have been fine if I had lost, but yeah.
Yeah.
I do feel bad for him for sure.
Yeah. Just hate that for anyone. So hopefully Pokemon can, come up with some type of creative solution. Maybe not this year because it's already set in stone, but maybe for
Right.
next season they can think about something. So I don't want to like solicit free coaching here, but because you do offer coaching, so anyone
Yeah.
looking for coaching on Medify,
I'm not on Medify.
You're not on Medify?
No, but you can reach out to me either on Facebook or Twitter, and we can
Perfect.
set something.
Yeah, highly recommend it. Nick's a very smart guy. But for
Thank you.
anyone, seeing your success, seeing how good you're doing with Lost Zone boxes, and wanting to pick up Turbo Lost Box. So, like, what are some tips and tricks you could give to listeners that you don't mind giving out for free?
I think just practice a lot is the main thing.
Yeah.
Get comfortable with the deck. That way, what resources you need to keep, what things are okay to throw away, what lines to take in terms of damage placement, things like that. And a big thing for me that's helped is playing with my discard fanned out so that I can see, and my Lost Zone, so I can see everything that's going on at once. Jotting down the prize cards, jotting down my Ionos to know what cards are on the bottom so that I know whether or not I should play a nest ball before I do my flower selectings and chorus, whatnot. Things like that have really helped me for sure.
Good. Yeah, I think that's a good tip. I leave my Lost Zone. I do like 2 rows of 5.
Yeah.
That way I know when I get to 10, and then I just keep, laying them out.
Yep.
But the discard pile is definitely, a good point. So thank you for those tips, Nick.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about Peoria a little bit. What's on your radar going into Peoria for Lost Box?
Mew is an issue because it forces you to bench Manaphy in a lot of matchups, say Lugia.
Because they can just use Greninja, right?
Yes. So that is something you have to look out for. Another thing is that Zapdos from 151, that if they play with the Hlucha, they can have a snipe. So I think, Lost Zone's still in a good place. You just need to bench Manaphy in a lot more matchups, which used to be the case last format as well against Lugia. When they had the amazing Raikou, you'd have to have Manaphy down. So makes it a bit trickier. And obviously it's already not the easiest matchup by any chance.
Yeah.
But I'll probably still stick with it most likely, at least until LAIC.
Do you see any cards coming out 151 that could be included in a Lost Box?
You could mess around with Mew for sure.
Yeah.
Being able to copy, say, a Tyranitar for a one-shot. Say, what else is there? You could copy Technoblast on Jacksect, I suppose.
Interesting.
It's not too much.
No, you don't get the copy weakness or anything like that. It's just strictly the attack and the
Yes.
effect of the attack, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Lost
So-
Impact would be a good one for sure.
Could you in the mirror? Yeah, Lost Impact is so good. In the mirror, if you run out of Sableye and you can't get to it for whatever reason, you could copy Sableye's attack if
You
it's in
could,
the active.
yeah.
Yeah,
which
that's
might be
interesting.
good because then you are putting a more tanky Pokemon in the active. Obviously, they can knock it out with their own Raikou or something.
Yeah.
That's certainly something you could do. You could not have Greninja in play and boss their Greninja. Yes, copying Sableye could be good. Doesn't really do anything against Gardevoir, I don't think.
I mean, you can copy Cresselia.
That sounds. I mean,
You
if you
can-
already Dragon Age, I
Yeah,
guess.
if you already track it.
I don't want to be putting a 2-prize Pokemon in the active against Gardevoir unless it's a knockout there.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course not. Well, this is some interesting thoughts. We'll see what creative deck designs come out of it. That's coming up, here on September 22nd. So they'll be here before we know it. We'll see you in Peoria, I assume. We'll be there.
I will be there. Yeah.
Okay. And once again, people can find you. How can they email you and reach out to you for coaching?
Yeah, the easiest way is on Twitter to DM me there. Nicholas Moffit 2. And my email is nickmoffit02@gmail.com if you want to reach out there for coaching as well.
And since you're not on Metafy and people can kind of see rates on there, what's your rate per hour?
At the moment, I'm charging 40 an hour.
40 an hour. Okay.
Mhm.
Awesome. Thank you for joining. Good luck in Peoria. I think this season, is when you're going to get your first win, right? You don't have a win yet.
That's the goal. Yeah.
That's the goal.
absolutely.
We're get you
Obviously,
a
it's
win
going to be
this
harder
year.
than ever.
Yeah.
Harder than ever, but that's the goal for sure.
I mean, you can do it. If anyone can do it, I know you can. So thanks
Thank
for
you.
joining, Nick. Thanks for everyone for listening to this episode of the Beach Court Podcast. We'll talk to you again in 2 weeks, guys. Have a great day.